maths for those students who want to enroll in medical, dental, veterinary, financial, and engineering programs at the chosen university in the UK. So today, I want to come in and talk to the parents about how you can be involved in your teen's education without hovering. Because parents, you know this one to be true. You're walking such a tightrope with your teen, aren't you? You want to support them, but you don't want to be over supportive. And so, what you want to be is you want to be supportive, you want to be involved, you want to be helpful. You don't want to be seen as a parent who is hovering around them all the time, is nagging them to study, to revise, to put in more time, effort, and attention. You don't want to be the parent who's adding the pressure to them when they're already studying A-level maths and A-level science courses. So the question becomes then, parents, is this one. How do I stay involved without becoming the problem? Because it isn't that you're caring too much, it's how involvement shows up every day when you're trying to help your teen. So this is the issue. As always, I always see two sides to a coin, I guess. And on this one, it's this. Some parents are hands off and they say, well, Graham, yes, but my teen is taking A levels now. It's time they stand on their own 2 feet. They've got to work this out on their own. They need to learn independence. And the missed deadlines for homework, lab reports go unnoticed until it's too late. And then the problems, they begin to surface, don't they? You only notice the problems when you're in parent evening and you're talking to your teen's tutor, and all of a sudden you realize that the working at grade is nowhere near their predicted grade, or the predicted grade is not high enough to be competitive for a quality university. Or on the other hand, the other side of the coin, you've got those parents who like to hover, constantly checking in with their teen. Are you studying? Are you revising? Did you do your homework? Have you studied for your test? Have you done that lab report? Repeated reminders. As I call it, you are the referee in the game. You're not the coach on the sideline. And what this causes is it causes tension between you and your teen. It causes shutdown. They just begin to back off and they begin to resist what you're doing because they want to be autonomous in the learning. Now, the issue is, parents, with this one is that both sides of the coin that I just described, hands off or hovering, unfortunately, neither one builds confidence in your teen. Why? Because it's unstructured involvement. So, what exactly does your teen experience when you are hovering around them all the time? Well, from the teen's perspective, it's this. They think, they internalize, you don't trust me. You think I'm failing, don't you? You think I can't get this right. And unfortunately, because they've internalized this belief system, it triggers defensiveness, avoidance, emotional shutdown. Because the irony is this, parents, is that less responsibility doesn't mean more reward. It doesn't mean better grades. You standing all the way back. Because pressure, it doesn't create independence. You nagging your teen, you hovering over your teen, you taking away all responsibility from them is not going to get them the higher grade in A-level maths and A-level science. You know what does? Structure. Structure is what gets your teen the higher grades in these A-level subjects. So You say, well, yeah, but Graham, if I'm not supposed to be hands off, if I'm not supposed to be hovering, well, then what exactly am I supposed to be doing to help my teen? Because I want my teen to be successful. I want them to get the grades in A level maths and A level science. Well, four things. N- three. Three things. Number one is you got to be predictable. Right? What you do has to be consistent when you're interacting with your teen. And so you can't be reactive, you can't be emotional, and you can't be driven by panic. And so if they bring home a bad test result, a bad lab report, a bad grade in the mark book, it's not the end of the world, parents, because they can spin out of it. You can actually overcome these. But you being reactive, emotional, and having a panic attack really doesn't help your teen because they then pick up on the negative energy. And if you're stressed, they become stressed. Number two is you've got to be process focused. Now, by process focused, I mean this: you are focused on the process that your teen is using in order to get the grades, in order to study, in order to revise. You're not focused on the grade. There's a saying that if you're ever involved in a skid, you're driving the car down an icy road and the car begins to skid and you're doing a 360 and there's a wall on the side of the highway or the motorway. If you look at the wall, if you look at that side of the highway or the motorway, you will crash into it. Why? Well, because where you focus is where you end up. And so if you become obsessed with grades, well, then you start to only focus on the grades, which means that it starts to unravel because you don't learn anymore. Your teen doesn't learn, they don't understand anymore. What it is more of they're just focused on the grades and they're getting more and more stressed out. They're not comparison focused. You don't compare them to other students in the class. You don't compare them to their friends. You don't compare them to how you did because comparison helps nobody. Because comparison is an attack on someone's identity and then they have to defend it. You're not outcome obsessed either. You're not thinking, okay, well, we have to get this A in A level chemistry because you've got to go to this university if you want to be a doctor. No, you're not outcome obsessed. You're process focused. And it's evidence based. Now, being evidence based, what I mean by this is, again, you've taken the emotions out of the conversation and you were just looking at the facts, kind of like a doctor would. He looks at the results that came back from the lab, he's having a conversation with the patient, all right, and he's telling them what he's found. Now, to have this done, what this means is that your conversations, they need to be anchored. They need to be anchored to the process and they have to be predictable. And you need to have them anchored on the work completed. Like, what exactly did you achieve this week, son, daughter? And what exactly did you achieve? Well, I did my homework. I did my lab report. I studied for a test. I've got a big exam coming up now, end of the month. You'll look at the feedback received because they need to be able to accept feedback for what it is. Feedback is something that is that feedback on their behavior. It's not on their beliefs. It's not on their identity. And the habits formed. Now, this is an important one, parents, because we've talked about this one in previous live streams. The habits. Grades are a reflection of your teen's habits. And so you need to make sure that you're checking in with your teen and actually asking them, right, so how exactly are we studying? How are we revising? Have we looked the feedback from the teacher at school? Have you onboarded it? What adjustments have you made? Now, again, if you take out the feeling, the emotion of looking at data, you can just look at data with a really crisp, clean, clinical eye. You're not making assumptions. There's no feelings. There's no emotions. But if you do this, if you take these 3 steps, parents, what you'll notice is that your teen's confidence begins to grow. Now, I don't like this one at all. And as you know, I run Empowered STEM. And Empowered STEM is an A-level course provider, and we provide A-level courses in biology, chemistry, physics, and maths for those students that want to enroll in medical, dental, veterinary, financial, and engineering programs at the chosen university in the UK. So today, I wanted to come in this live stream, and I wanted to talk to you about how you can be involved in your teen's education without hovering. Because parents, you do walk a really tight rope, don't you? Because what you want to be is you want to be supportive. You want to be involved. You want to be helpful to your teen as they're going through the A-level process. What you don't want to be is you don't want to be the parent who is hovering, or the parent who is nagging, or the parent who is adding pressure. And the question that most parents have is this one: how do I stay involved without becoming the problem? And it isn't parents that you are caring too much. What you're wrestling with is, how do I show my involvement every day? What's the best way of me doing that in trying to help my teen? It comes down to this. You're trying to be supportive. You're not trying to be controlling. Some parents are hands off. To them, well, my teen needs to learn independence. I got them through the GCSEs. They're on their own now. They'll be in university in a couple of years. And unfortunately, the handoff parents, you don't notice when your teen begins to miss deadlines for homework, lab reports, other things that the teacher wants. And the problems surface too late for you to solve them. Meaning, all of a sudden, your teen is on academic probation. All of a sudden, you're in a teacher-parent conference, and the teacher's saying that your son, your daughter is working at this grade, like failing, and this is their predicted grade. And you're thinking, well, great, that predicted grade, it isn't really high enough for my teen to get into a top university, and I know that my teen can do better. Or there's those parents that like to hover. They're the parents who are constant checking. Have you done this? Have you done your homework? Have you studied? Have you revised? Did you do the lab report? Repeated reminders. Well, isn't it time for you to sit down now and hit the books? Do some studying for a couple of hours? Or so on the weekend you're studying, right? Okay, just checking. And the problem with this approach is that you create tension in the household between you and your teen, and they begin to shut down. They begin to withdraw emotionally. And then all of a sudden you get this resistance from your teenager. I can do this. I know exactly what I'm doing. And the issue is this, parents, is that neither approach, hands off or hovering, neither approach builds confidence. It's unstructured involvement. Now, you mean the best for your teen, for your son, your daughter. I know you do. But what exactly do teens experience when parents hover? Well, from the teen's perspective, hovering, this is how they interpret it. This is how they internalize it. You don't trust me, do you? You think I'm failing. You think I can't get this right on my own. And what this triggers in your teen, because they're now beginning to embody these beliefs, they begin to internalize these beliefs, this triggers defensiveness. This triggers avoidance, triggers emotional shutdown. The three things that you don't want to have triggered in your teen. Because the irony is that by hovering, what you're doing is you're taking away responsibility from your teen and their autonomy. And you think that is going to help them increase their grade in A-level maths and A-level science. The issue is this, though, parents, is that pressure, it doesn't create independence. You know what does? Structure. Structure is what creates independence. And this is what you need to instill in your teen so that they can be successful in A-level maths and A-level science. So what exactly does healthy involvement in your teen's education look like? We know it's not hands off. We know it's not hovering. Three things. It's got to be predictable, it's got to be process focused, and it's got to be evidence based. So let's look at the first one. It's got to be predictable. You can't be reactive, you can't be emotional, and you can't be driven by panic. And so if your teen brings home a bad test result, a bad homework grade, a bad lab report, they didn't do too well on an exam, you can't overreact, parents. You need to be predictable. You need to be calm, cool, and collected. The second one is going to be process focused. It can't be focused on grades. It can't be comparison focused. It can't be outcome obsessed. Meaning, parents who make their teens focus on grades, those teens, their grades don't improve. Why? Well, it's like, for example, you're driving a car down the motorway and you go into a spin because you hit a patch of ice. If you look at the barrier or if you look at the other cars around you, you will crash into them because what you focus on is what happens. And so anybody knows that if you go into a tailspin, you focus on where you want to go, which is down the road and not hit the barriers or other cars. It doesn't help to compare them to their siblings, to their friends, or how you did when you took A levels, because then you're attacking their identity and they become defensive. And you can't be outcome obsessed, meaning you can't keep saying to your teen, well, you have to get this grade in A levels, and then you go into this university, and you get this grade at university, then you go into this medical school, and you could be this doctor, this kind of doctor. All right. Because again, it's better to be process focused. And the third one is it's got to be evidence based, meaning your conversations you have with your teen, they have to be anchored in the work completed. What exactly did you achieve this week, son, daughter? Well, in biology, I had this homework set, I had this lab report, and this test. Okay. Feedback received. Right, so you got the test back, you got the homework back. How exactly did we do? Have you looked at what the teacher wrote on the paper, on the feedback that they gave you? Have you onboarded it? Have you self-corrected the course you're taking? And most importantly, it's got to be anchored in the habits formed, because grades, parents, grades are a reflection of your teen's habits from last month. And so it's very important that you focus on their habits, because habits are what get you the higher grades. Now, did you notice in these three steps, being predictable, process focused, and evidence based, it's not about feelings. It's not about assumptions. And if you take feelings out of it, the emotions, help your teen understand that it's not the school, it's not the teacher, it's not the exam board, it's not the A-level subject. If you take out the assumptions, meaning you're assuming that They can do it, or they can't do it, or they're not studying, they're not revising enough. If you take all of that out, what you're left with is a level playing field. And this is now where confidence starts to grow, because your teen trusts you. So, empowered STEM, as you know, we have a 4-step pathway that we use to help teens such as yours climb the ladder to the grade that they want. We call it the journey that they take. There's 4 steps to it. The first step is precision diagnosis. And so, in the context of what we're talking about today, parents, precision diagnosis means involvement starts with clarity. You don't need to check everything that your teen is doing, every homework set, every question. What you need to know is, where are the gaps in the knowledge? What's working for them in terms of study habits, revision strategies, exam technique, and what isn't working for them? Because if you just focus on these 3 areas, you can replace the constant questioning of your teen with a more informed conversation. The second step is conceptual clarity. And in the context of today's live stream, contextual clarity means this: many issues, they aren't effort problems. Your teen is putting in the time, effort, and attention. What it is that they're misunderstanding a core concept or an application of it. They have a shaky foundation. Maybe they don't quite get all the concepts that the teachers talked about in A-level chemistry for that month or A-level biology. Or possibly they only have surface level learning. They've memorized the mark schemes to a couple of papers, and they can repeat back what they've learned. But if you twist the question around, they can't do it. And so how you support your teen on this one is you make sure that they actually understand the topic. And so you can ask them, well, on the topic in A-level chemistry, you're doing proton NMR spectroscopy. Brilliant. All right, let's make sure that you understand this topic before we move on to something else. Notice how we're going for the behavior and the understanding of the core concept. What we're not doing is asking them a why question, which we talked about in the previous live stream. Why question is a stem that will activate a belief. So don't ask them, why aren't you revising more? Because parents, that doesn't really help, because they'll come back with a belief statement and then they will defend it. Notice how the question that I asked was more of a behavior-based question. The third step is strategic revision. Involvement by you with your teen's education, it should guide the direction that they're taking, not the intensity. Meaning, you don't need to say to them, well, you know what, you just got to do more, don't you? You just got to study more, or you just got to work harder. You're not putting in the time, the effort, and the attention that you need to do in A-level chemistry or A-level maths, for example. Flip the question around and again, go for a behavior STEM question, which is, what are you practicing this week in A-level biology? Tell me about it. Or, right, so you got the feedback from the teacher. What's that feedback telling you about your study skills and your revision strategies in A-level maths? Right, got it. So what's the next focus step then in the plan in A-level chemistry for the week? Now, do you notice how these are behavior-based questions? And what you've done, parents, is that you've transferred ownership to them, which is what they want. They want to feel autonomous. The next one is medical mindset. And this one has to be the biggest shift. and what you can do to help your teen improve their grades in A-level maths and A-level science. And you need to model it for them. So what you need to model is the fact that you are calm, you are neutral in your emotions, and you're thinking about long term. So if they come back in from school and say, Mom, Dad, I've failed this test, okay, let's be calm about it. Let's be neutral. You don't need to get involved in an emotional standoff with your teen. And you need to think about the long term thinking. Well, son, daughter, it's only one test, it's only one homework set, it's only one lab report. There's always the next one that we can work towards, we can spin out of it. Because if you do this, what happens is that mistakes become information, not drama. Because when you think about it, parents, you can't learn something that you already know. And if you're learning something for the first time, you need to make a mistake. Otherwise, you don't know if you know it. But when parents stay regulated emotionally, your teen feels safer taking responsibility because they're thinking, okay, are you on board with what mum and dad talked about and what the teacher at school talked about? I tried it, didn't quite work. So what they don't want is the mum and dad be annoyed and irritated with them. What they want to have is a bit of emotional leeway and a safety zone where they can try it. And if it didn't work out, well, then we can go back in, we can have a bit of feedback, we can try it again next week, we can tweak the plan slightly. So what's the practical framework, parents, which is going to help you stay involved without hovering? First one, schedule involvement with your teen. I know that you're all busy, your teen's busy, but a short weekly check-in with your teen on the same day, the same time, the same structure of the conversation, it gives predictability. And predictability reduces pressure. Because your teen knows that you'll ask them how it's going, maybe on Saturday morning, sit down, a quick conversation with them. Second one is ask process questions. So instead of, well, how did you do on chemistry last week? I heard you had a test. Or what grade did you get on the A-level biology exam you took? Try asking slightly different questions. For example, so what feedback did you get from the teacher on your A-level biology test you took last week? Right, I seen you really put the time, effort, and attention in. What felt harder this week in A-level biology? You were doing, what was it, gene expression? Okay. Right, so you got through your homework and your tests and your exams for the week. Fantastic. What's the plan for next week then? What are we doing? Number 3, look for evidence, not reassurance. Because confidence, it doesn't come from parents who say to their teen, oh, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. No. Confidence comes from completed work. Confidence comes from reviewed feedback from the teacher. Confidence comes from consistent habits. Because then they have evidence of what's working and what's not working. And evidence replaces anxiety. The fourth one, step back deliberately. Now, my saying is you don't want to be the referee in the game with your teen handing out the red card. What you want to be is that you want to be the coach on the sideline. So once you've got a structure set in place for your teen, once you've got a study plan for the week, you've gone through and helped them understand the best way to study, the best way to revise. Resist micromanaging. Support does not mean surveillance. I know, parents, you need to step back, don't you? So let me give you some reassurance. Parents, you don't need to do the following. You don't need to check everything all the time, remind them constantly what they should be doing, push harder for them to do more work, put in more effort. What you need is that you need to provide structure for them. You need to stay calm. You need to anchor the conversation in evidence in a non judgmental way. Because at the end of the day, the goal, parents, it isn't independence today, it's confidence built over time. You don't need your teen to be independent today, parents, when it comes to A-level maths and A-level science. What you need to do is help them build confidence over time. Because when they have confidence in themselves and their ability, then the grade is naturally going to increase. Now, parents, if you're watching this live stream on Facebook and you agree with what I'm saying, actually, Graham, you're on these live streams a couple of times a week. I totally agree with what you're saying. Then fantastic. On Facebook, follow us on the Facebook business page, and you'll be notified of upcoming live streams. If you're watching this live stream on the YouTube channel, then subscribe to the YouTube channel, because not only will you be notified of upcoming live streams, but you'll also be able to watch all the other live streams that we've done. And we're always putting out live streams like this because we like to help parents. We like to give you tips, techniques, and strategies in order to help your teen be successful in A-level maths and A-level science. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the courses that we offer at Empower STEM, in the description below the Facebook Live, in the description below the YouTube Live, there is a link that you can click on and you can fill out a short form, and a member of my team will reach out to you and have a non-sales, non-committal conversation. And it's a very easy conversation that they have with you. It's this: you tell my team member how your teen's doing in A-level maths and A-level science, in terms of their working grade, their predicted grade, their aspirational grade, which university they want to go to, what they want to study, what they want to be on the outside. And we'll tell you about our courses, how our courses at Empower STEM work. And at the end of the conversation, you'll feel well taken care of and have all of your questions answered. You'll feel well informed. And then if it's a good fit for your teen to enroll in one of our courses, and if we think that our courses can help your teen, then you can make an informed decision of what to do next. Everybody take care, and I'll see you on the next one.